You're listening to the Author Stories Podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
JT Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Ford,
Corey Dr. O,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Mott,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Charlene Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is
Stacey L. Tucker.
Well, thanks for tuning in to Author Stories today. We've got a fantastic show for you. Go to hankgarner.com and subscribe to the show. Any way that you download podcasts, you can listen to it there. I'd like to talk about some sponsors before we get started. Scribophile is a respectful online writing workshop and writers community. Writers of all skill levels join to improve each other's work with thoughtful critiques and by sharing their writing experience. We're the writing group to join if you want to find beta readers, get the best feedback around, learn how to get published, and be part of the friendliest and most successful writing workshop online. Improve your writing by receiving detailed critiques, learn from a vast collection of free writing resources, make lifelong friends in our busy community of writers. Writing is a solitary art, but that doesn't mean you have to be lonely. Lucky for you, there are thousands of writers on Scribophile every day, and we're a really friendly bunch. You've never seen a writing group like this one? Join Scribophile today at scribophile.com. For the Words is a unique writing motivator unlike anything I've ever seen. For the Words is an online writing platform which motivates writers of all backgrounds to increase their word count through gamification. Writing can be challenging, especially when you need to consistently produce a high output of words. By injecting a little fun into that routine and using daily rewards to promote a healthy writing habit, For the Words makes it easier to reach those word count goals. We're a community of bloggers, professional authors, college and high school students, research scientists, gamers, and first-time writers from all over the world. Come for the words, stay for the fun. It's forthewords.com. That's the number 4, thewords.com. Business Essentials for Writers, How to Make Money in an Ever-Changing Industry by James Nettles. Business Essentials for Authors is your business 101 guide for the publishing industry. Whether you have never published at all or are looking to take your professional career up a notch in an easy-to-read and conversational way, the book covers the 5 pillars of business. Meet all of the people and jobs in the publishing industry and how they fit together, building the foundation of your business career, including paths to publication, understanding sales and marketing in publishing, establishing all of the operational side of any business, from contracts and intellectual property, working with different tools and technologists, and how to design and build your website, learning how money works as an author, basic accounting, and making more money. We look at all this and more from a long-term strategic view, how to get the plan done, and the mindset to make it all work together. It's Business Essentials for Writers by James Nettles. Kick. The Jenkins Cycle, Book 1 by John L. Monk. A supernatural thriller. They say suicides are damned for eternity, but if possessing the bodies of violent criminals is hell, then Dan Jenkins will take it, and he does every time a portal arrives to whisk him from his ghostly exile. Normally, before the villain returns to kick him out, Dan dishes out a final serving of justice and leaves the world a safer place. It's one of the rules if he wants more rides, and he's happy to oblige. For a part-time dead guy, it's a pretty good gig. And then he meets her. Kick is the first book in a series of supernatural thrillers. If you like Quantum Leap and Everyday, you'll love this gritty and original take on the body-hopping hero story. Vividly written, Kick is a wild ride with a sharp, sarcastic wit and a flawed yet likable main character. Kick by John L. Monk. Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories Podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm really excited to have my friend Stacey Tucker back on the show for a return visit. Her new book, Alchemy's Heir, is a follow-up to the book that we talked about, I guess it's been about a year and a half ago now, Stacey, Ocean's Fire. And this, if you loved Ocean's Fire, you're going to absolutely fall in love with this book. Welcome back to the show, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me back, Hank. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you back. Since we normally start each show with the same question and of what is your first memory of wanting to be a writer or storyteller, we've answered that question already in our previous show, and there's a link to the previous show in the show notes. So I was thinking about what to ask you to kick off the show, and I know that you are a big book lover, not only a fantastic writer, but you have several stories of books that have meant something really special in your life. What is a book, or maybe a series of books or something that have meant something? We talk that we use that cliche sometimes that a book changed our lives, but a lot of times it's really true. Is there one like that for you?
Oh, gosh, it's so funny. Just yesterday, I was in the bookstore, and I thought that the bookstore seems to be my place where I find the answers. For me, I could feel the energy of the books there, and it's almost like my place of solace where I always find what I'm looking for. And I tell the story about, this was probably 15 years ago, the book on the shelf that called my name, and it was Dr. Wayne Dyer's Erroneous Zones, which was a self-help book. And I had never thought of self-help, didn't think I needed it, right? And then the book, it was just calling my name, and then I read it, and it was like it was written for me. And I say it was written for me, and I feel like books do that, right? They if they're done right, they touch you in a way that makes you think, gosh, this was written to me. And I felt that way about that book, and a lot of spirituality books and self-help and things that I always felt about myself but never found answers for. And so I've just found a place in the bookstore as my go-to. And then for fiction, to discover that you can also find yourself in a story is also transformative. We find our heroes and our heroines, they are able to attain something that we just believe can be in ourselves. And so that's why I've really tried to make my protagonists relatable and not just too perfect, because I want readers to feel like they can attain, they can reach for their unattainable goals and attain them. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I do just find books as just such the catalyst for change, and not just nonfiction, but also fiction.
Well, I think so many people listening are nodding along and agreeing with you that I think most of us can point back to a book or a story that just resonated with us deeply, and like we feel like the writer is talking to us. And an interesting thing about fiction, and you said you've had a number of fiction books that have done that with you as well. But then as the writer, there's something interesting about how we can take these concepts that we have learned about, or sometimes we don't even acknowledge that these things have kind of become a part of us until we start writing about it, and these things come out of the deepest parts of who we are. But there's something about writing a character that allows us as readers to connect with the story, because we see them going through it and we experience it with them, and then that becomes a part of us as well. Exactly.
And it's interesting. I've had the pleasure of going through this journey for 3 books. I had my first one, the second one that's out now in 2019, and then I'm also working to finish up my third that's going to be out the end of this year. And so it wasn't just one book that I had to squeeze it all in. I've had the luxury of taking the character over the course of 900 pages instead of 3. And I've come to learn, and it's so funny how life works this way, but how she is me, this character, and how bits of myself, and I'm sure you're chuckling as to, you knew that was the case. How we as writers, we infuse our own lives, but then also add the magic of imagination to enhance. But it's just so funny that I find these aha moments in my own life and think, oh my gosh, I'm going through these same things that my characters are going through, and it's how art imitates life.
Yeah. Well, what's so funny is that as writers we always wind up in our books, but sometimes, or maybe even a lot of times, the people that readers think are us are not necessarily. There may be aspects of us that show up in all of the characters of the book, and there's just something fun about using writing as therapy, and that's way more official sounding than it really is. But there's just something about living out through these characters, and we go on a journey as writers with them, and the readers just get the bonus of that, of going along.
That's true. And I also think that the creativity within every person, whether you're a writer or not, is there, and it's just waiting to be accessed, and it just varies as to what your modality of creativity is. And mine happens to be writing, but others it's painting or starting a new business or raising a child. And so there's all of these different ways we can express the divine within us. That is our creativity. And so that's really the approach that I take, that it is me writing, but I also, I have a specific practice where I connect to the divine inspiration, the muse, the source of all that is so accessible if we allow it and let it flow through us. And I feel like that's what I'm doing. I'm letting this story, these characters flow through me. And many times I'm taking dictation.
Well, that's a really interesting concept, and we talk about the muse and about how these almost divine things happen to us, and we're journaling and writing along with it, and the story comes out of that. You said you have a very specific practice. What is something that you do when you sit down to write that ensures that you are going to connect with the story that day?
Ensure is a strong word, Hank. But it is highly likely. It is highly likely. Yeah. It works for me almost all the time.
Well, if you didn't have the confidence that it was going to happen, then you wouldn't do it. Right. So ensure is a strong word, but it's something that you believe in.
Right. And I have to say it has developed over time. With my first book, it was quite a struggle. And with this book, it was much easier because I trusted it more. I trusted my own voice more. And it has to do with just showing up every day. You hear that you show up every day, and then it shows up. And it is true. Yeah. When I'm not giving the attention to the craft on a daily basis, and when I say daily, it's just 5 days a week. I have a family, and so weekends I leave for them. So it's literally a routine, and I train myself to know that I'm going to sit in my chair at 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, and I have my specific word count that I'm looking to get to, which is honestly it's maybe 1,000 words. It's not a lot. I can do that in maybe an hour. I have a child and other things going on, so I get it in when I can. But I have a practice of meditation in the morning and a connection to my divine higher self, and it's literally a short prayer, and it's a connection that I've developed over the course of time, and it never fails me. Really doesn't. If I'm having a hard day, I might find it hard to sit. It's honestly the sitting. I'm constantly bouncing up to just go get distracted. I want to distract myself from the connection to my greatness, to my work. And it's that Stephen Pressfield avoided the resistance you get from wanting to do that work of writing 5,000 words when only 500 will be worth sharing, right? And so you have to get over that as well, which is takes maturity and takes, knowing that you have a deadline and you can't wait to the end to get it done. So I think it's a combination of all that. But honestly, it's the trust. It's the trust in knowing that it will be there when I am there.
Right. You talk a lot about your spiritual practice in writing and in reconnecting with that side of who you are. Why do you think that we have lost touch with the spiritual side of who we are? And we like to talk about writing as kind of this mystical thing. But there's a wall there a lot of times where we don't want to say this is like a spiritual practice. Why do you think that is, and how important is that as a creative person to acknowledge that other side of who we are?
Oh gosh, I think it's the most important part. I count on that when nothing else is going right in my life. It's the internal support that I know for a fact, my faith in my creative flow that gets me through the day. I think we've lost it. Just the busyness of our lives, the frenetic loscheduling of life. The pace of life is so rapid right now, and we've lost the ability to connect to our joy. And I think the creative process is a joyful process. And it's almost some feel guilty. Oh, well, if I'm not really, busting my butt, I must not be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. The joy shouldn't be there. And I'm not saying it doesn't take work, because there's so much work involved, but it's a work that you want to do as opposed to feeling like you have to do. And that's all the difference as well. And I also think people tend to be afraid of their gifts or afraid of their capabilities, their greatness within. We've been told by our culture and our religions and our, some have family who, we're not good enough and our creations aren't worthy, we're not worthy, all of that dogma that's been poured on generations of humans, that I think we're only now starting to unpeel and realize the extraordinary power within human beings. And that's also a theme in my books, is to peel back those layers of the belief systems that have kept us small. And now we are given the opportunities to really explore and what will give us wings. And it's really been, and like I was saying, I'm noticing it in myself, and it's also in my character. So it's been my kind of coming out process of my creative self as well as my characters.
Well, the story that you're telling in these two books so far, with a third to come, the newest book is Alchemy's Air. The first one was Ocean's Fire. This is a really interesting story in that it's a modern story that is couched in these kind of epic legendary tales. Where did the idea come to do a story like this?
Well, it's interesting. I was doing just for my leisure, which you may find funny, researching ancient history. We're very versed in modern history, but the ancients, not so much. And I was a business major in college, and goddess culture and ancient religions were not on my radar. And but one of those books you mentioned about changing your life was this book by Jean Shanoa Bolin, and she wrote Goddesses in Older Women, and it was all about female archetypes and how they correlate to the ancient goddesses. And again, another book that spoke to me, and I thought, wow, this is just so amazing. And I just kept researching more about ancient cultures and ancient history. And I really just wanted to, so I had that part of it, and I also had the part of the mystical traditions of the agnostics and the Jewish Kabbalah, and I was diving into all that. I mean, the internet is a wonderful place to learn about all of these things. And I came across this idea in the Jewish Kabbalah, and it was the 3 mother letters. And they're Aleph, Mem, Shin. And Aleph is air, Mem is water, and Shin is fire. And I thought, oh gosh, what a great idea for a trilogy. You know, the 3 great mothers who created the world, the elements. And that was really what sparked it. Just this one little idea I had, and then using all of the concepts that I was learning about ancient history and bringing it into modern day, bringing it into someone who's in her early 20s and going through life as we all are when we're in college. And so there's a lot of great female characters who are grandmotherly as well as young. And I really wanted to get the wisdom of older women into this story. You know, in our culture, we're all very much, you know, youth is queen, but we also are just missing a huge part of our grandmothers and the women in our lives that have this wisdom to share. And I wanted to give that a voice. So that's really where that came from.
Where did the character of Skylar come from?
She actually is very similar to my stepdaughter, Martin. She is loves horses. She grew up riding horses, and she is college age, and she's an extraordinary girl in this environment of social media, and everybody wants followers and likes, and it's the popularity contest of online. And she's done an amazing job of staying true to who she is as a person, and her own internal truths. And that's what the first book was really about, getting in touch with your internal truths despite the beliefs that have been placed upon you in your life. And the second book is all about making peace with your shadow self, the parts of yourself that you don't really love, and finding a way to love those as well. And so those are the themes of the first 2, among a story with, some romance and some adventure and of course the fantastical, magical element to it. Because I do also feel that our world has a lot of magic in it that we could see if we really looked. And so with our busyness and so often and the way we've been conditioned, we don't tend to look for the magic. But it's there if we just look for it. So my character really, I have to give a nod to Margot, my stepdaughter.
Love it. You said that you saw a lot of yourself in Skylar. What is it when you start to write a story like this and you start pouring yourself into it? Are there boundaries that you set up that I will not allow myself to talk about this or that, or do you just freely go and let the story go where it's going to go?
That's a very good question. I haven't seen boundaries quite yet. I tend to err on the side of being honest and try and bring my vulnerability into my nonfiction writing, and so I haven't wanted to limit that in my fiction writing as well, because I've been writing some articles about raising a son and trying to, and step parenting and things like that. And I feel like the way to connect to readers is really being vulnerable to what's going on in my life as well, because we're all really going through the same stuff. So I try not to censor. I can't really think of a time when I have. I know I tend to err on the side of, oops, I hope my husband won't get mad. Well, but then he doesn't get mad, so it's fine.
Yeah. You touched briefly on kind of the big themes of the first book, and as opposed to the second book. Where do we find Skylar and company in this book? What is the adventure that we're along for the ride, along with her for the ride for in this book?
Yeah, she is actually headed to the underworld. There are a few things that she has to fix and retrieve from this magical place, and so she actually has to go back in time, which is a fun element. She has to go back in time to the boarding school that's similar to an Adirondack camp where her mother went, and the four women who are very central to the story. And so she goes back and meets them as they are teenagers. So she's actually the older one in the setting. And so that's fascinating. She gets to see her mom, who had passed away in the first book. So, and has an opportunity to heal that relationship that she didn't get before her mom passed. So I think that's a little bit of a spoiler there. but it's a good story. So she's headed there down to the underworld and meets some fantastical goddesses there as well. And she enlists the help of her best friend and the romantic interest in the story.
Well, after you published 2/3 of the trilogy now, and did you know from the very beginning that this was going to be 3 parts?
I did, and I was naive to know. I didn't know what the work involved, because had I don't know if I would have signed on for such a huge project. But I did, because again, with the 3 Great Mother letters, I knew I wanted to do a book on fire, one on air, one on water. So I had that plan, but that was pretty much it. I mean, my plan was one sentence. That I knew that was going to be it, but I didn't really have the parts or had it all figured out. And that really goes back to that creative, divine faith. I've been a bit of a pantser. You know, I know there's the planner and the pantser kind of, and I've been a bit of a pantser, but it's worked out, because I surprise myself with how much it's worked out as well, because things that are connecting, the dots that are connecting, I'm thanking my angels for, because I was like, wow, you know, this is connecting so nicely, and it just goes back to that faith again. But and I wouldn't necessarily recommend that's the way to write, but it has worked out for me, I have to say, and I thank God for that. But it's been water. I have to tie it all in. You know, I have to end it, and so this will be my greatest test, to get all those get it to come full circle.
Well, I think that's a very practical thing that a lot of people would be interested in hearing, as that people think and they assume that because you're a pantser that you have no idea where the story's going and you're just making it up as you go. There are lots of pantsers that pull off great series, and there's overarching themes, and and things come together nicely. Are there any tools that you picked up along the way that help you to keep the story on track and to make sure that you're getting a proper story arc within each piece of the trilogy? Have there been any things you picked up along the way that have helped?
Absolutely. I will say I'm not an outliner, but I am. What I've done is to do a mind map. I started with a circle in the middle, who was Skylar, and then I have all of these little antennas that come out from the circle. And it's just all these lines, and it looks like it's a drawing. It's on this 11 by 17 piece of paper, but that's truly how I had done it in the beginning. So to say that I was just going by the seat of my pants, I did have an idea, but it wasn't by any means outlined. It was more of a visual map. And I think, even though I'm a writer, I'm a very visual person. And that,
I think a lot of writers are.
Yeah. And so that was, a great tool for me was really to just do it more like a map instead of an outline, because I would stare at that piece of paper and then it just wouldn't, nothing would happen from that piece of paper.
Who do you see when you're writing? Who do you see as your ideal reader? Who were you writing for?
I originally, my target audience was young women from, starting from like age 20, and just that sort of new adult demographic. But women that have resonated with the books have really been older women. I would say, from 45 up, which is who I am. I'm 45, but, and I really wasn't writing to my, I wasn't writing for me, my age group, but that's really who has been resonating. I do know I have some younger girls who are interested in reading the story, and I have a couple of racy scenes in the first book, and I'm trying to have those edited out so that I can offer the book as a young adult book, because I do feel that there are a lot of great themes for girls. I'm usually young adult books are geared, the protagonist is a teen herself, and my Skylar is 20. So I had never planned on that, but I do want to give that as an option. And so I'm working on just getting that done, and that's going to be, in the next couple of months or so, that will be an option as well.
Well, that's really interesting, because I think a lot of people feel like once the book is finished that it's kind of set in stone and you can never go back and alter this thing. But sometimes the story grows, or maybe the audience changes a little bit, and having the freedom and flexibility to do that, it sounds like it's a good thing for the story and for your readers.
It really is, and I have to really give kudos to my publisher, Spark Press. The women there are so incredible, and it's a small publishing house, and they're very flexible to be able to do that. All I did was approach them with the idea, and she really liked it, and then it's done. It's a possibility. So it's really they've been amazing to work with. I've been so happy. I'll have the 3 books with them, and then plus this edited first. So it will be the 4 total, and it's been just a great experience. So I do have to thank them for that.
Excellent. The new book is Alchemy's Air, and it is the second part of the trilogy, Fire, Air. I'm betting on water for book 3. Am I right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Well, Stacey, you've got to come back the end of the year when book 3 comes out, because I'm going to have very specific questions about wrapping up this trilogy.
Oh, great. I can't wait, Hank. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, tell everybody before we go where they can find you online. I know you've got a fantastic website and stuff, but where folks can dig into all that you do and connect with you.
Okay. Yes. My website is Stacey L. Tucker, and Stacey with an E, StaceyLTucker.com. My Facebook page is author Stacey L. Tucker, and I've got Instagram, which is Stacey L. Tucker. I had to get that L in there because Stacey Tucker is very common. So I had to differentiate somehow, so I got my L in.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, the Equal Night Trilogy, books 1 and 2 are both out, Ocean's Fire and now Alchemy's Air. Stacey, we wish you much success with the new book launch, and we're going to send everybody to see you.
Thanks so much, Hank. This has been a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Author Stories podcast. For more great author interviews like this one, go to hankgarner.com and dig through the archives. There's something there I know you'll love. Now stay tuned for a special audio clip from Richard Gleaves' The Jason Crane series.
Hello, young one. What ghoulish tale of horror shall we explore tonight? Shall we watch The Creepshow? The Nightmare on Elm Street? Child of the night, give me your answer.
Which one would Mom kill us for watching? Said Buddy. Dad grinned and his eyes grew wide.
Which do you think, child of the jackal?
The Omen!
And we might have time for Omen too, if we hurry. She'll be home by 11.
I'll be back. Buddy ran to his room. He stripped down to his Yoda underwear and fished in the closet. 2 minutes later, he snuck back into the living room wearing his skeleton costume from last Halloween. He crept up behind his dad, who was cueing the movie. But David Rittermeyer was too clever for that. He spun around at the last moment and bared fanged teeth torn from paper plates, drawing a yip of surprise and a cry of, "No fair!" Daddy kicked off his Reeboks, plopped his smelly gym socks on the coffee table, another thing that Mom would hate, and killed the lights. The scary intro music began. The screen showed the silhouette of a boy, about Buddy's age. His shadow was a long, creepy cross. The Antichrist, the son of the devil. Born of a jackal on a night of astrological portent, destined to bring about the end times and the final battle of good versus evil. Buddy sipped Sunkist and scooted up next to his dad. As the movie got scarier, he slipped an arm through his father's and cupped his big bicep. Buddy could feel his father's pulse. Dads get scared too. They flinched together, shouted together, pointed at the screen and covered their faces together. Buddy pressed his eyes to Daddy's shoulder just before the on-screen maid shouted, "It's all for you, Damien!" and dove from the roof, hanging herself. Buddy knew which parts he was old enough to watch and which parts he wasn't. He trusted his dad to let him know when to look again. Occasionally, his dad tricked him into peeking too soon, but that was part of the fun. They kicked their feet at the screen and shouted, "Look up! Look up! Oh, idiot! Don't get yourself killed!" At the climax, the hero of the movie, Mr. Thorne, discovered a birthmark of 3 6s on his son's head and dragged the little Antichrist to the altar of the church, determined to spear his son with holy daggers and end evil forever. After it was over, the Rittermeyer men sat silently through the credits. David put an arm around his son and ran his fingers through Buddy's hair. He wasn't searching for devil marks. He knew there weren't any. And Buddy was certain there were no daggers in his father's hand, either. Those things were just make-believe. Real fathers and sons don't do bad things to each other. They were queuing up Omen 2 when the power went out. "No," Buddy whined. "Not on movie night." Daddy went to the window. "It's the whole block. Sorry, Damien. How about, scary blackout. Go get the Ouija board out of the guest room closet." "Cool. And candles." Buddy found the Ouija board, hidden under old clothes. When he shut the sliding door again, the sight of a monster startled him, and he let out an involuntary, "huh" sound. It was his own skeleton-bodied reflection in the mirrored closet door. He stared at it. He liked the effect of moonlight on his cheeks. Spectral, haunted, his eyes big and white. He clacked his teeth at himself, picturing his own grinning skull under his child's flesh, and gave an evil laugh. He was answered by a scream. A woman's scream. High-pitched and far away. One of the neighbors? Buddy dropped the Ouija board into a patch of moonlight and sat with it. "What's going on?" he whispered, his fingers on the heart-shaped wood planchette.